We trust a particular person, we trust a particular agent, because we know this guy doesn't do wrong by me. AI allows us to make that trust scalable. Let me give you an example here. My dad is about 70 years old, and I'm always worried that he'll buy something fraudulent, he'll buy something that is missold to him, he'll get into something that he doesn't need at all. So I tell him, whenever you make an expensive purchase, just give me a call. Now, AI allows me to put something that is smarter than me right in his own pocket. So when he's making a purchase, he can ask an AI agent, hey, is this the right purchase for me? Is this the right insurance policy for me? Is this the right financial investment for me? And he can tell my dad that, hey, don't buy this or buy this. Right? And that allows us to make trust scalable. I can imagine in the next 1 or 2 years, every one of us will have an AI agent who can shop for us, who can compare prices for us, who can choose the right interfaces for us, and who can tell us that, hey, don't buy from here. This looks like a fraudulent platform, or this looks like somebody's mis-selling you an insurance scheme that you don't really need. And India has already shown the world that we are adopting these things faster than anyone else. We had Sam speak a couple of days back that India is their second largest market with 100 million plus users. We had Dario speak about how India is their second largest market for cloud.
Some special people sitting in the audience. Professor Raj Reddy is here, Turing Award winner, and so this is an academic gathering. So when the summit was planned, the MeitY or the organizers also wanted to have a academic symposium or research symposium in parallel with it, and I was contacted to see if I could coordinate it, so I agreed to be the co-chair, and I get to stand here and represent a co-chair, but there were so many people who helped me with this. They are very critical decisions. One of them is Kalika Bali sitting there. I mean, she's part of the India AI team. She did a lot more firefighting than I did. And of course, Abhishek Singh, the additional secretary, who guided us in multiple ways. See, we think we are researchers, we think only researchers' way, but this is not only a research event, this entire summit. So how to put these things together, Abhishek has been very instrumental in doing that. So AI has suddenly become so big. Even 2 years ago, if somebody had suggested people working in AI or machine learning will win Nobel Prizes, everybody would have laughed. And we got 2 in the same year. And even the Turing Awards, you know, the first initial pioneers, 4 or 5 pioneers of computer science got Turing Awards, of AI got Turing Awards, say back in 60s and 70s. After that, about 20 years, there was a gap in even Turing Awards being given to AI work, and Raj Reddy and Professor Feigenbaum were awarded Turing Award in '94 for their work in AI. So even the computer science community was not recognizing it as much. Of course, now it has changed. You have many more Turing Awards in the last year, in the recent years. So when we started planning this, we didn't know where to go. There are so many things happening in AI. How do we bring everything together? And we tried to get as much of it together as possible, and I'm very, very pleased to have 4 stellar individuals doing keynotes. Demis Hassabis himself, who uses AI or ML techniques to advance science mostly, where the humanity benefits unquestionably. And we will have, after that, Dame Wendy Hall. She's been working in web sciences and looking at the progress of how web and this big connected world enabled this whole thing in some way. AI wouldn't have been there without this data and this adoption. Then we have Yoshua Bengio, who has been on the safety side, on cautioning everybody of the potential dangers of AI. And I think they are very real. We need to listen to him. And we also have Yann LeCun, who probably takes the other side, who is very, very gung-ho about AI's potential. So I think we need to listen to all the voices. I'm very glad that all 4 kind of voices are heard here in terms of plenaries. Then we have what we call research dialogues. One is on the, how AI can be a catalyst in discovery of science and engineering progress, and how we can increase the impact of that. The other one is on AI itself, what next? What is the, what next frontier for AI research? Where is AI going? Then we have two international, we call it international panels, or Global South, with Global South concentration. One of them is on Global South itself. What is the impact on Global South? The other one is on AI safety, safe and trusted AI. These are the two parallel sessions that will happen. And then we have invited several top publishers from authors who published influential work in AI from across the world. People have come from all over the world to present. They will be in posters during lunchtime and right after this session. So we have a fantastic program ahead, and this should spur dialogue and discussion in topics related to AI. And I was very pleased to see the large crowds for the last 2 days, and I'm sure every one of us is pleased to see a full hall like this here. Everybody is eager to know about AI. Everybody is eager to know how it will affect them. So we'll have a fantastic session today. I'm thankful for this opportunity to curate this session and bring it in front of you. Enjoy this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. May I now invite our Honorable Minister for Electronics and IT, Shri Ashwini Vaishnaw ji, to deliver the special address.
Very good morning, friends. This is a research symposium, and I'm not at all qualified to be standing here. I wouldn't take too much of your time. Just want to thank you for coming out in such large numbers at 8:30 in the morning. Yesterday we had about 250,000 people, mostly young. The average age was, I think, below 30, attending the AI Expo and the entire exhibition area. It was phenomenal response. When I interacted with the young minds, I was so surprised at the optimism that most of the young people expressed towards this opportunity which is coming for them. Initially I was a bit apprehensive, but looking at their optimism, I am feeling really hopeful for a totally new future for our country and for the world. We in India are very focused on AI in the edge, AI for use cases, AI for solving real world problems, AI for improving the productivity in the enterprises, AI for population scale problems like healthcare, like agriculture, like climate change. These are the things that we are focused here in India. And this AI Summit brings that opportunity. And as we discuss various technical matters, I will request the topmost brains which are present here to please do bring some solid, concrete suggestions on how to make AI safe. This is a great tool. It should be used for the benefit of humans. It shouldn't be something which really distorts that balance. I really look forward to the suggestions and ideas which will come out of this symposium. Thank you very much for coming to this symposium in such large numbers, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With this, we formally conclude the opening ceremony of the Research Symposium on AI and its impact. Thank you, sir, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Mic is on. Mic is on.
Hello everyone. My name is Mausam. I'm a professor of computer science at IIT Delhi and also one of the co-organizers of the Research Symposium. I welcome everyone to the symposium, and in fact, we are all looking forward to it, and the rain gods have also showered their blessings today, so we know that this is going to be a great symposium. It is my distinct honor to welcome Sir Demis Hassabis, the Fellow of Royal Society, a Nobel laureate, and the CEO and co-founder of Google DeepMind, for the keynote address. And with him on the stage would be the moderator, our own Professor B. Ravindran, who is himself a IIII Fellow and head Department of Data Science and Artificial Intelligence at IIT Madras. So I request you to please join us on stage and deliver your keynote address. Thank you.
Thank you, ministers and Government of India and our fellow professors for inviting me here to give this keynote. It's a huge honor to be here. Very excited to see the incredible turnout from the country and the interest in AI, of course, but also from many of my colleagues from around the world in both industry and academia who've convened here. So I'm looking forward to a really amazing couple of days of discussions about the way forward for AI. When we started DeepMind in 2010, seems it's only 16 years ago now, but it's almost a lifetime in terms of AI. Almost nobody was working on AI back then, few people in academia, but almost nobody in industry. So it's been amazing to see the progress we've made in just over a decade. But at this point, I think we're at a threshold moment where AGI, artificial general intelligence, is on the horizon, maybe in the next 5 to 8 years. So this summit comes at a critical moment as we start seeing more autonomous agentic AI systems, much more capable. I think we're seeing the beginnings of what those kinds of systems can do. And of course, the opportunities are incredible. For my personal passion is using AI for science and to advance science and medicine with systems like AlphaFold. I think we can revolutionize drug discovery and human health, and also areas like material science and climate change with the help of AI. But of course, it also comes with many risks too. AI is a dual-purpose technology. It's going to be one of the most, if not the most transformative technology in human history. And that's just on the horizon now. And the thing about this technology is it's going to affect the whole world, everybody in the world. It's going to cross borders. So it's very important that we have summits like this, international summits, to bring the international community together to discuss how to make sure the opportunities benefit the whole world, and also how do we mitigate the risks. And I think in order to mitigate some of the risks, it's going to need international cooperation. And the first step for that is to have international dialogue. And I think that's what these summits, starting in the UK, and then in Paris, and then in Korea, and now here in India, are for, and have been really helpful in convening many of the important heads of state and many of the important leaders in this technology together to discuss what is on the horizon. So with that, thank you for having me, and I look forward to the discussions here in the next couple of days. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And so, Demis, you started talking about how amazed you are at the progress that AI has made. And you started DeepMind in 2010 with a vision to solve intelligence. So, are we there yet?
No, I don't think we're there yet. I have quite a high bar for, if we talk about solve intelligence, meaning building artificial general intelligence, then my measure for that is having a system that can exhibit all the cognitive capabilities humans can, including in creativity, long-term planning, things like that. And today's systems are very impressive, but as we know, they still have many flaws and things they can't do, including consistency across different tasks that you would want from a general system.
So you did mention AGI, right? So what do you think really that we can do to take where we are right now and move it towards artificial general intelligence, as you define it?
Well, when I look at the current systems and what's missing from them being a kind of general intelligence, I would say things like continual learning, so learning after they've been trained and put out into the world. The today's systems, we train them, we do various different types of training on them, and then they're kind of frozen and then put out into the world. But what you'd like is for those systems to continually learn online from experience, to learn from the context they're in, maybe personalized to the situation that, and the task that you have for them. And today's systems don't do that. Also, they have difficulty in things like doing long-term coherent plans. They can plan over the short term, but over the longer term, like the way that we can plan over years, they don't really have that capability at the moment. But I think probably one of the biggest issues is what I would call consistency. So today's systems, they're kind of like jagged intelligences. They're very good at certain things, but they're very, very poor at other things, including sometimes the same thing. So, for example, today's systems can get gold medals in the International Maths Olympiad, really hard problems, but sometimes can still make mistakes on elementary maths if you pose the question in a certain way. A true general intelligence system shouldn't have that kind of jaggedness.
But aren't humans jagged as well?
No, not in that way. I don't think so. So I think if you're an expert in maths, and many of you in the room are, or in physics or something like that, you're not going to sort of make a mistake on a strictly easier, more trivial problem, right? You would have some way to work through that problem. Similarly, let's take the example of games, which is very close to my heart, and we've used in the early days of DeepMind to train our AI systems. Today's general foundation models are very poor at, for example, playing chess, below kind of weak amateur level. And that is not what you would expect from an AGI system. There are other tests, too, that I would have is true creativity. So AI is very useful as a scientific tool, an assistant, or for solving specialized areas like AlphaFold does with protein structures. But really what separates great scientists from good scientists is their creativity and their sort of, maybe you could call it taste for what's the right question, what's the right hypothesis. And it's much harder to come up with the right question and the right hypothesis than it is to solve a conjecture. And, I would call that the highest level of sort of creativity. And so far, today's systems, they don't have that capability. One way we maybe would test that is you could imagine training a foundation model with a knowledge cutoff of something like 1911, and then see if it could come up with general relativity like Einstein did in 1915. But that would be a good test, I think, for AGI. And I think today's systems clearly would not be capable of doing that. But I think this will be solved in time.
Okay, that's great. So you talked about scientific tool, it's a tool for scientific discovery, right? And so we see a lot of headlines about AI, making great breakthroughs in science sometimes. But how would this become the norm, right? I mean, so do you see AI becoming the scientific tool for discovery soon?
Yeah, the reason I spent my whole life and career working on AI is I saw it quite early on as if you could build these kind of general models that were good at pattern recognition, they would be incredibly useful scientific tools. Maybe the ultimate tool for science. That's what I was thinking. A lot of science is about finding insights and structure in vast amounts of data. That's perfect for AI. And so I think we're going to enter in the next probably 10 years a new golden era for scientific discovery, almost a new renaissance, using these tools, incredible tools like AlphaFold, but I hope that will be the first of many that can massively speed up our research and accelerate scientific discovery across almost any subject area. So I think that's going to be the next period is using these systems as tools. And then after that, we'll see as they become more autonomous, can they be kind of like co-scientists with you, like a PhD student, something like that? I think we're still quite away from that, but maybe in 10 plus years that will be possible.
So just to reassure a good fraction of the audience, you still see a role for humans in that future, right?
Yes, I think the next phase is going to be incredible, I think, for human experts and scientists, the amount of work they'll be able to do. And I'm actually really excited about cross-disciplinary science, which is quite hard because you have to understand, more than one subject area, maybe 2, 3, 4 subject areas, and then find some interesting connections between that. I actually think that's where a lot of the really valuable advances are going to happen in the next few years, these combinations of subject areas. And I think having a tool like AI will really help scientists learn about and be able to understand and process all of that information from multiple different domains.
So in some sense, science is a well-defined field, if you will. I mean, you can recognize success and so on and so forth. So what do you think would be the role of AI in more abstract domains like policy and other kinds of public decision-making?
I think I think things like science, but especially if you take coding and maths, are more amenable to the current systems we have today. Mostly because, especially coding and mathematics, but also things like games like chess, they are verifiable. So the answer that the AI system outputs can be checked for correctness. And so it's very useful for when you're training these systems. You can have databases of questions and check to see if 100% if it's right or not right. I think, of course, when you get into the arts and the humanities, things like decision-making, policy, I'm not sure what you necessarily had in mind, but they're much more subjective. They're hard to run the same experiment twice, so it's difficult to get data about what is a good decision in those cases. So I think there'll be those areas will be a lot harder for AI to sort of model.
So as a neuroscientist, so what do you think we have learned about human intelligence itself with all these advances in AI that we're seeing?
Well, I think when you're in the early days of this, I guess, modern AI phase, which maybe you could say is the last 20 years, with the advent of things like deep learning from Jeff Hinton. A lot when we started at DeepMind too, we took a lot of inspiration from the brain. high-level systems inspiration, not the direct mechanics of the brain, but things like episodic memory, what does the hippocampus do, which is what I studied, how, obviously, neural networks, reinforcement learning, your area, which we know the brain, dopamine system in the brain implements. So we kind of took inspiration from the brain, which is the only example of a general intelligence that we know of, maybe in the universe, as a starting point. And so we sort of knew that it was possible in the limit, right? And I think that's why neural networks and reinforcement learning have been so successful, because I think learning is the key to these modern AI systems working, not being programmed with the answer like expert systems were in the 90s, like Deep Blue, but actually allowing the systems to learn directly from data. And I think now, what I view looking back at neuroscience is, how efficient the brain is, sample efficient. It doesn't need, to ingest the whole of the internet to understand things. So it's a different. What we've built now today, it uses some of the same principles, but it's been manifest in a very different type of system than probably the way the brain works.
Okay, thank you. So one of the things that people always talk about is the safety risk, security risk from AI, and so on and so forth, right? And so what does GDMs stand on this, and how do you approach making sure that AI is safe?
Well, we've been, when we started DeepMind, we actually, were planning for success. Our mission statement was solve intelligence, step one, and then step two, use it to solve everything else, which at the time, sounded like science fiction, but I think now is becoming clearer how that might be possible, and applying AI to almost every subject area. But we planned for success, so even though we were just starting out and the field was mostly just building up ahead of steam, we understood also the implications of that if that did turn out to be the case, and we thought about it as a 20-year mission, and I think we're basically on track for that, around 2030. Then it would come with these attendant risks as well, as the enormous benefits to science and medicine and all these things that I think we need as a society to help with our other challenges, many other challenges that we have around the world. But also, as these systems become more powerful, I think there's at least two risks that we've always worried about. One is bad actors, human actors, but individuals, but it could be also nation states, using these systems and repurposing them for harmful ends. Because they're dual purpose. But then also, as we get closer to AGI, and I think we're entering maybe a kind of agentic era, should we call it, where systems are more autonomous. I think we'll see a lot of that happening this year and next year. Then we have to make sure as well that the guardrails are in place, that these systems do what we expect them to do and don't veer off into areas that we hadn't planned for. And that could also be problematic. So I think those are the two challenges. There's a very sort of societal one, which I think also is going to require international dialogue and maybe ideally a minimum set of standards that is agreed internationally. And then the second one is more of a technical risk of how can we make sure these systems are robust and reliable.
So, I mean, setting aside all existential risk questions, so what do you think is the top two risks that we should address with AI systems today?
Well, I mean, I think I mentioned the two classes of problems. I think we need to worry about things like bio and cyber risk very soon. I think that the current systems are getting pretty good at cyber, and I think we need to make sure cyber defenses are more powerful than the attack vectors. And it's something that we work on quite a lot at Google and at DeepMind, is sort of using AI for cybersecurity to make sure that, of course, it's a very useful tool for cyber defense too, but you need to make sure that the defenses are stronger than the offenses. So, I think those are kind of near-term risks, but there are many that we need to think about and do a lot more research on, and some of them are to do with agreeing a sort of set of standards, which I know many people, including yourself, are trying to work on.
Great, thank you. So again, talking about international collaborations, right? So you said that we really have to work on that. So an audience like this, or a gathering like this, right, where we are trying to involve the Global South very much in the dialogue, right? So what do you think would be the impact of such gatherings on the overall direction of AI? Do you think, and are these going to make a big change going forward?
I think so, and I think that's why it's important we convene this summit around the world, because it's going to affect, this technology is going to affect everyone. It's a digital technology, so it can't really be contained by borders. There's things like open source, which is generally very good, but also one has to think about if you found a vulnerability or some issue with an open source piece of software, how do you recall it? How do you patch it? There's no recall. So we need to think about that. These are new issues with something like AI, where it's hard ahead of time to fully understand if there are any vulnerabilities. And I think for the Global South and countries like India, I think there's huge opportunity for the youth of today. You all have access to pretty much the most cutting-edge tools in the world. Right? I don't think that's ever sort of happened before, maybe only 3 to 6 months after they've been invented in the frontier labs. And I think, and I can say as someone working on the coalface of this, we barely have time to understand what are the amazing capabilities that could be supported by these models, in products and applied research. So I think there's so much potential there to be explored. And I think we'll see a lot of that, and hopefully many of you in the audience too, entrepreneurs here, you can do incredible things, maybe 10x of what you could do before, because these tools are so capable and they're available almost instantly around the world.
So I have a question that's more specific, because you are right now in India, right? So the Indian population, like one of the things that a lot of people have been remarking is that the crowd at this summit is extraordinarily young, right? So this youthful energy, right? So you think what would be the role that India can play effectively in the future, given the resource constraints of India, but also the availability of this talent pool?
Well, look, I've been incredibly impressed already about the energy that's here, and we heard from the minister that, the youth of today, and in India especially, I think when you see the polls on this, are very positive about AI, which I think is great. And what I'd recommend to the students of today is to really lean into becoming incredibly proficient with these new AI tools. And I think over the next 10 years, that will almost kind of make them superpowered in terms of what they're able to do, whether that's business or science. And it's a little bit like the dawn of the computer age, or maybe mobile or internet that we went through. If those, the generation that grows up native with that technology will end up doing sort of incredible things that we can only dream of right now. And I think that's going to happen with AI, and I think India and the youth here can be at the vanguard of that.
Since this is a research symposium, can I ask you to get a little technical on the next answer?
Yes, sure.
Great. So, we saw the evolution of how AlphaFold, right, started off by building on top of existing work from Baker Lab, and then moving on to evolving all on its own, right? So what do you think is the next stage technically in the evolution of these kinds of co-scientist models?
Yeah, so with AlphaFold, we actually built a completely new system, but it required the PDB, the protein database. So it needed the 150,000 structures that humanity had painstakingly found over the last 50 years through experimental work, right? And that turned out to be only just enough data to actually, solve the problem and build a system like AlphaFold. The interesting thing is, and the debate we have at DeepMind and other places, is what's the difference between the general system, which you can think of like the brain, and the tools that it uses? So for us as humans, there's no debate about what's our minds and what are our tools, because obviously it's physically separated. But if both things are digital, and in some cases both things are AI, the tool and the orchestrating system, then what do you put in the main system and what do you leave as a specialized tool? Now, in my opinion, I think you'll end up with, in our case, with foundation models like Gemini, will use things like AlphaFold as a tool. So if Gemini wanted to or needed to fold a protein, understand the structure of a protein, I think it would be better for it to call AlphaFold as a tool than put all of that protein information into the main system. And I think if you want to talk about it technically, I think the choice comes down to, if you put that data into the main system, does it help with other tasks? Does it transfer to other tasks? Or does it actually degrade the performance on those other tasks? So it's actually an empirical question. So that's why, for example, coding and maths, we put that in the general foundation models, because it turns out if you get good at coding or maths, you're actually better at planning and reasoning in general. So it's a useful skill, but it also generalizes. And but something like, the folding proteins probably is a very specialized skill that wouldn't necessarily transfer to other domains. So I would be of the opinion that we should leave that as a specialized tool.
Oh, that's interesting. Because a lot of learnings from robot path planning was used for robot path planning was used to try to solve protein folding. So you think knowing how to protein fold will not transfer back to other domains?
It might do, but we would, I think in fact, we do these experiments all the time on smaller scale models where we ablate different data sets and we try and mix in certain data sets and see if they help or if they regress some benchmarks. Like, it would be no use if you put all the protein data in and then it got worse at language, for example, which is probably currently what would happen. So maybe over time with an AGI system, you just have everything in the one system. But I think for the foreseeable, maybe future, I think it'll be more efficient to still have separate tools. Also, those tools, by the way, might be hybrid systems in that they might not be just learning systems. They might also have built-in structures, like AlphaFold did actually, about physics and chemistry and chemical bonds that you could learn, but would be more efficient to just tell the system or program that indirectly.
So now that I mentioned the word robots, so I'd like to ask you, what's next in physical AI?
Well, look, I think I'm getting increasingly excited by robotics. I probably wasn't so interested in that 10 years ago because I felt that the issue was the algorithms, not the physical construction of the bodies. I thought the algorithms were the thing that was behind. Now, I think algorithmically, and actually we're very excited about Gemini robotics because we built our foundation model to be really good multimodally, so it could understand vision, image, the world around us. So it has a very good understanding of the physical world. And that's exactly what you'd want for robotics, is a kind of general system that understands the physical context the robot's in. So I think we're probably in the next 2-3 years, we're going to see some very interesting new breakout moments for robotics. I think there's still quite a bit more research to be done. I don't think we're there yet, like some robotics companies are claiming. And I think we'll have humanoid robots and also non-humanoid. I think both will be useful. But I think in the next couple of years, there'll be some really breakthrough moments. So I think it's a very exciting space to watch and a good area to get into right now.
So a little tricky question. So a lot of people are, that is a lot of fear mongering around AI. We know that most of it is unnecessary. But if you start getting humanoids that are running off foundation models, do you think the fear factor would go up?
Potentially. It depends how we design those humanoids, but I think some risks go up too, right? Again, depends on what you deploy them for, and I think increasingly, especially if the humanoids are pretty capable and they're heavy, there are dangers and risks with that. So I think we need to have those guardrails that we were discussing earlier in place by the time there's a lot of robots roaming around.
Great, thank you. So we talked enough about risks, so let's talk a little bit more about the positivity of things. So I know a lot of the benefits of all this cutting-edge AI right now still seems to accrue to the countries that have more resources, right? That have GPUs, that can run their models there, and so on and so forth. So what do you think would take for AI to reach the global south, benefit a much more larger fraction of the population? So what kind of initiatives that we should be looking at?
Well, look, I think we kind of touched on it earlier, but these the leading foundation models, maybe there's 3 or 4 of them, and perhaps 5 or 6 if we include the Chinese models too, then they're pretty much available very cost effectively for a few months behind. Also open source. I mean, we work on our own open source models, Gemma, which we'll be releasing a new version of soon, which are very powerful for edge devices. So I think that's very interesting areas, really efficient models for computing on the edge, whether that's your phone or a single laptop, or eventually robotics. I think there's huge opportunities there for optimizing what those kinds of models do and the types of products or applications you can build on top of that. So I think there's a lot of potential there for those types of work to happen.
The entire audience, the auditorium went dark for a bit.
Yes.
So, no, that is not signaling any kind of ominous thing. So don't worry about that. It's amazing. So I was actually there when you did the first game playing demo at one of the NeurIPS side events.
Yes.
And that was in this tiny room.
Yes.
Even then it was packed. And this large auditorium is packed. So what's the largest size hall you think you can pack if you're talking nowadays? Madison Square Garden?
I don't know. This is a pretty big one, and I hear it's streaming to many, many people online. So, but yes, I remember that at that NeurIPS event very well. It was a hall maybe a third of this size, but I think it was standing room only, and it was packed outside the door. And that was really the first success that we had with these deep reinforcement learning systems that we sort of pioneered that could play Atari games, very simple games now, but just directly from the pixels, not giving any other information, just maximize the score, here are the pixels on the screen. And it was the first demonstration, I would say, maybe of the modern AI era, of an agentic system doing something kind of challenging and interesting. That, in this case, a task that was designed for humans to find interesting and enjoyable and somewhat challenging. And I think it was kind of a watershed moment, of course for us, but also maybe for the industry. It was back in 2013, I think. And that actually this thesis of learning systems, learning algorithms, this idea of generality, that you don't special case the information or give it privileged prior information to the system, that maybe was the way traditional AI had been done, or good old-fashioned AI had been done until then, expert systems, that actually that could scale to something interesting. In this case, an Atari screen with 20,000 pixels on the screen, trivially small by today's standards, but very, very large action space and data space for the types of systems we had then.
Yeah, now they've become like the hello world of reinforcement learning now. So
Yes. And then, of course, that encouraged us to then go on with AlphaGo, which was, I think, really the big watershed moment that made the field and the industry set up a notice in 2016, and I think started a lot of the commercial interest in these technologies, that we could scale this kind of deep reinforcement learning and learning systems to actually, beat the world champion and the legendary, Lee Sedol in our South Korea match.
So, and one thing I really have to say that, you wrote up everything about the Atari game player and also later AlphaGo that allowed the rest of the reinforcement learning community to catch up. So thank you for that. Yes. And of course, my first success was I was actually in the room and not outside clamoring to get into the room to watch the demo. But so that's great. So again, let's forget AI for a minute. Let me ask about reinforcement learning. So that Rich Sutton has been talking a lot about how and David and Rich wrote this amazing article on how reinforcement learning is going to drive AI forward. So what's your take on that?
Well, yeah, obviously we've had many debates over the years, and I think it's, for me, if I was to say, and maybe we can take this question more generally, like what do I think about today's foundation models and reinforcement learning? Of course, reinforcement learning is an integral part of the post-training of these models. And I think the inference time compute, the thinking part of the models, could actually benefit a lot more from the ideas we pioneered in AlphaGo, the Monte Carlo tree search and other things. So in actually many respects, we need to combine the ideas we had with AlphaGo with today's foundation models. Of course, it's harder because you don't have a perfect model of the world. Right, you need a better world model. In games, it's trivial, right? The transition matrix. So I think that's an issue. But if you're talking about, if I was to guess today, I think the foundation models are going to, like Gemini, are going to be a critical part of the ultimate AGI solution. And then I think we'll have lots of interesting reinforcement learning on top. I think eventually, one day, maybe 20 years from now, we'll have a kind of more like an AlphaZero type system where, reinforcement learning can learn everything from scratch, right? But I think actually that's not going to be the fastest way to AGI. I think it makes sense to use the foundation models and all the information that's already out there and learn that as almost like a model of how the world works, and then do your reinforcement learning and planning on top of that. I think that will be more efficient in the first case.
Is it still going to be the cherry on top?
No, I think it's going to be, you have to ask Yann about his cherry comments. I'm sure he can talk at length on that. But I've never really agreed with that. I think it's just a fundamental, I don't really, I think, obviously if you measured it in terms of bits, then one can say, well, how much bits of information are you getting from the reinforcement learning? But in my view, and presumably your view, is that not all bits are equal in terms of information. Of course, if you get a bit about, did you win the game or not win the game, that's much more important than some random pixel on the screen, right? So to equate the informational value of those bits in just, a trivial way is clearly incorrect in my opinion. But I do think that the foundation models are going to be, the question is are they going to be all that's needed or just a critical part of what's needed? I think there's no question they're going to be at least a critical component of the first AGI systems.
So we're almost out of time, so I just want to ask you, what's your message for the attendees of this summit?
Well, look, I think my message is one of, I would say, cautious optimism. So I think we're on the cusp of an absolutely incredible transformation that's going to bring incredible benefits in science and medicine specifically is what I'm passionate about. And I can see revolutionizing the way we deal with human health. I think there's many amazing companies and tools and products to build on top of these systems, and I think everyone in the world can build on these AI systems to do that. But then also I would just add a note of caution, which is I think we will solve these technical issues given enough time and enough brain power on it. I believe in human ingenuity, and if the best minds work towards that, I think we'll solve the technical risks. But we also need to do this internationally, so the societal challenges of that may actually end up being the harder problem than the technical ones.
Thank you. So Demis Hassabis, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Demis Hassabis and Ravi, for such a stimulating discussion covering the breadth of AI and reinforcement learning in such a short time, talking about possibilities and challenges. I have been asked to tell you that the number of people waiting outside to get into the room outnumbers the number of people inside the room. So you are requested to please stay seated if possible for the next session before we have a break. That would help with the law and order situation of the auditorium and outside. So I kindly request the attendees to stay on for the second keynote of the Research Symposium, which is going to be delivered by Professor Dame Wendy Hall, yet another fellow of the Royal Society and a professor of computer science at University of Southampton. And joining her as a moderator is going to be Dr. Anant Deshpande, founder and chairman of Persistent Systems. Over to you, Wendy and Anant. Yeah, that side might be easier. So we are joined on stage by Professor Dame Wendy Hall from University of Southampton and Dr. Anand Deshpande for Persistent Systems. Please give them a huge round of applause.
Okay, Anand, I don't have a clicker. I have slides. Oh, hang on. Wait. Okay. Yeah. Are you introduce me? Are you going to introduce me? Sure. Okay, right, wait in a minute. Oh.
Let me start. So good morning, all of you. It's a pleasure to welcome and an honor to introduce a true pioneer in the digital age, Dame Wendy Hall. Long before artificial intelligence became the global headline, and even before web reshaped our daily lives, she was working on hypermedia and linked information systems, foundational ideas that anticipated today's interconnected and intelligent worlds. Few people have influenced both the birth of the web era and the global AI conversation. She has done both. She serves as the Professor of Computer Science at the University of Southampton. She's a Fellow of the Royal Society and the Royal Academy of Engineering, reflecting her rare ability to combine deep scholarship with real-world engineering impact. Her contribution to the global computing community is equally profound. She's a Fellow and former President of the Association of Computing Machinery, the world's largest professional society in computing. Through ACM, she has championed international collaboration, open science, and the responsibility of digital technologies, shaping the profession far beyond her own research. In recognition of her extraordinary contributions to science, technology, and public service, she was appointed Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire. At the moment when the world is asking how to build AI that is powerful, trustworthy, and globally accountable, Dame Wendy's voice carries both authority and wisdom. Please join me in welcoming Dame Wendy Hall. It's an honor to have you here.
Hello, everybody. Are they all coming in? Huh? Okay, fine. Are they going to come in? Let them in. We should let them in, right? If they want to come in, there's seats. You want me to just keep going? All right, well, I'll start because it's so distracting. There's a huge crowd of people there. The crowd following Demis, you know, the we are not worthy crowd went that way. This always happens to me when I speak with Tim Berners-Lee as well. But I just want to say, first of all, before I forget, a big thank you to the Indian government. Abhishek Singh is somewhere here, PJ, Anand, all the people for inviting me to be a keynote here. It is a huge honor. And I want to say a few things that are a bit different this morning. So I have used some slides to try and explain where I'm coming from. So I'm talking about unintended consequences because that's what we've all got to worry about. Whenever you invent a new technology, you have to think about what might get wrong, what might go wrong. And you will have noticed with Demis, who I will preface these remarks by saying I have the hugest respect for Demis Hassabis. I think he's one of the greatest people in the AI field, and one of the few that actually does address the challenges. But you heard him say on safety, we've got to do this, but no talk about how. We've got to build the guardrails. We've got to keep things safe. But meanwhile, we're carrying on inventing more advanced technology. So that's what I want to try and get us thinking about today. And as Anand said, I was around building hypermedia systems before the World Wide Web. Met Tim Berners-Lee at one of the first World Wide Web conferences. And you know, I remember him putting up the first website. I don't know how many people, there's a lot of young people here, I don't know how many people remember the first website going up. There was one. And it wasn't a very exciting place to be at the time. This is what happened. This is a graph that one of my PhD students produced in 2013, just as the web was beginning to get completely explosive. I'm going to talk about the ChatGPT moment later. I would argue the ChatGPT moment for the web was the invention of the smartphone. See, the iPhone was released in 2008, and that's when you could actually start using social media. The internet was there, but you could start using social media on the move. And I tell lots of stories about this graph. I haven't got time today, but it is amazing to watch. There's a bubble, remember the bubble? And Facebook started in 2004, and little did we know, because we weren't anticipating people would do bad things with this system. We thought it would be used for the good. Beyond this point, the social media starts to take off, and the oligopolies grow. We hadn't foreseen that either. The fact that Tim was always talking about lots of different people innovating on the web, but of course they coalesced into a small number of big companies, oligopolies, with the Googles and the then Twitters, the eBays, the Amazons. And look at what's happened. With the internet and those companies, this is what's driving the current AI revolution. The internet's given us the access to the data. The companies have that data, and they have the deep pockets to invest in the new systems. And so we're moving into a world, we've got the issues with social media, which we still haven't tackled, that the unintended consequences of social media that's doing so much social harm. I didn't think about that in advance. We thought it would be for the good. And then also the rise of the big tech companies that are dominating today's AI field. So this was in 2006 with Tim Berners-Lee, Nigel Szabo, Danny Weitz, and others. And by the way, that's Rod Brooks there when he was head of MeitY. He's the man who invented the robots that clean your carpets, iRobot. So this is 2006. We launched this concept of web science to try and understand what had driven the growth of the web, what the social consequences were, and what they might be in the future. It's very hard to build scenarios when you're talking about people as well as things, because you can't predict what people are going to do. So we drove this development of web science. Tim talked about, in his book, Weaving the Web, the concept of a social machine, the concept of technology and people coming together to create artifacts that couldn't have existed otherwise. Google's an example of that. Twitter's an example of that. And all the other, so we talked about web science being the theory and practice of social machines. And we were thinking about, could we monitor, could we anticipate the social consequences of the development of this technology? Does that ring any bells about what we're trying to do today with AI? And so I'm now going to leap forward, because I've only got a short minute, 10 minutes or so, 5 minutes left probably. And we're going to talk in a minute, but jumping forward to 2017, the Royal Society produced a seminal report. A seminal report on machine learning. As we all saw that this, Demis said they founded DeepMind in 2010. It was when the machine learning revolution was coming, and he said, there weren't many in academia. There are loads of AI professors in academia. But anyway, that's beside the point. And then I was asked by the then Prime Minister of the UK, Theresa May, in 2017, to write a review of how AI could impact the growth of the economy. She was looking positive, and job creation note we were asked to talk about. That was the beginning of my world of AI policy. Jump again another 5 years forward. I don't have time to go into the details of everything, to what I call the ChatGPT moment. 30th November 2022, when OpenAI released ChatGPT, and suddenly everybody in the world who had access to the internet through the web, this all happens through the web, could talk to an AI, right? And thereby hangs the tale. We anthropomorphize it. A lot of people think, you know, we've had all the issues of falling in love with their chatbots and all the issues around people, the vast majority of the world not understanding what this technology is and what it is they're dealing with. And then we had an era of a year or so of, you know, existential threats. So there's OpenAI saying, here's this amazing technology, does fantastic things. Oh, by the way, it could wipe the human race out in 2 years' time, right? How are people supposed to deal with that? Our Prime Minister at the time, Rishi Sunak, who is here, I don't think he's here, but he's here at the conference this year, he got very interested in this and launched the first global summit on AI, which was, as Demis said, in London. They were still talking about existential threats. That was his advisor was talking about them. But also he introduced the AI, he created the AI Safety Institute, which is an important part of this story. At the same time, exactly the same time, the UN launched its high-level advisory board on AI. It was a huge, huge privilege to be on that. This, I believe, is a way forward. I think the only game in town for the global dialogue that we called for in our report, Governing AI for Humanity, and Demis called for on the stage this morning. And hopefully there's going to be some discussion of this amongst the world leaders tomorrow. We have to have global dialogue. We have to have discussions on standards and what values and standards we set for the industry globally that will be managed in the nation states. This, I believe, is so important, and they announced their new scientific panel that Rav is on, other people in the room might be. It's moving forward, and I think it's possibly the only game in town. I just said that there. And the other thing, so where are we today? The United Nations have just launched their panel, new scientific panel. Hopefully they'll launch the global dialogue at the AI for Good conference in Geneva in July. And also the Yoshua, of course, who's talking later, produced the latest version of the safety report. Sorry. That was published last week, 222 pages. I hope you've read it all. I haven't yet, but something new I want to talk about, which I think is really the way forward, building on those, is in the UK, is something I'm really interested in. Remember back to what we were doing with the World Wide Web as it grew. Our National Physical Laboratory, NPL, with the support of the UK government, has just launched a new centre for AI measurement. Oh, that's bad in the slide, isn't it? Sorry, measurement. Centre for AI measurement. This could lead to the sort of Met Office for AI, right? Met Office, Metrology Office for weather forecasting. We're talking about AI metrology here. And I think this is a way to help us define what we mean by the science of AI. Can we forecast? Can we simulate? Can we get the data we need to do that globally? Right? This is very important that we can share data in order to build up the whole concept of AI metrology. You won't have time to read all this side, but it's basically about building a industry for AI assurance. This is the future. This is one of the very particular ways we can do safety, is how do we assure products? How do we assure people who are selling products? How do we, what license do people need to use AI? Do we bring in laws that says if it's AI, it has to say it's AI? All these sorts of things. And how do we measure the impact? I mean, you know, the Australians, good for them, are trying out an experiment for stopping social media for the under 16s. How do we measure the consequences of that? Right? These are the sorts of things we have to be able to develop. And this is where my life is going to go over the next few years. I also want to shout out for the UK AI Security Institute. Some of them are here, I think. Because they do the most amazing things in terms of looking for the bad actors. Seeing a lot of it is very deeply security-based, because they're seeing where... I'm way over time, aren't I, Anna? Sorry. Seeing, you know, what are the results of the... are any of the AIs going rogue, basically? And the network of those, which is the countries that have AI safety or security institutes, is being called the International Network for Advanced AI Measurement, Evaluation and Science. And I think this is so, so, so important. I believe this is where we need to go. I'm sorry, Demis, but I think AGI is a meaningless term, or at best, an ill-defined aspiration. We need to work out what we're actually talking about here. It reminds me of The Emperor's New Clothes, if you know that one. I'm told it is also an Indian folklore. What are we really trying to achieve? Yeah. And I would just make, there's a difference between machine intelligence and our human intelligence. And we need to think about, what are we trying to do with this? This came from a friend of mine, Pete Rye. I should have put his name on there, sorry. Talking about, I think of the machine as more like the Dr. Spock in Star Trek. And of course, we are messy, unstable, we have emotion. You know, people talk about AGI, well, the machines will have emotion, they'll have consciousness. We don't understand what that means for ourselves, let alone trying to build it into machines. And, you know, that moment in 2001, where the machine says, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do this. Right, that's what we want to be able to avoid. I just pay homage to what India's done with data governance. I've been here, I travel here a lot, and my friends here know. I've followed the story of the Aadhaar, what Nandan and the iSpirit team did with that. And now this is one of the things that India can really lead on. We can't have good AI governance without data governance. And I'm on the UN working group on that. It's very difficult. Cross-border data flows, really hard stuff. Whose data is it? How do you value it? All those sorts of questions. This is the end, basically. You know, it's more about physical... We're not just measuring physical artifacts, we're measuring and assuring social machines. These AIs are a huge force for good, but we've got to stop the bad things happening if we can, mitigate against them. We've got to reset our moral compasses here. It's not okay to do bad things with AI systems. We've got to let people to understand that, right? And it's not just governments and the technical companies, it's tech companies, it's civil society as well. We've got to all be more responsible. That's a big project at Southampton, by the way, or AI UK. I'm just going to finish with this slide, because I'm also into scenario building. How can we actually model the different ways that the AI world can develop, and AI meets people can develop? There's lots of forking paths. We've got to decide which way we want to go. And we have to decide what type of world we're trying to build here, which pathway are we taking. And I love, by the way, the slogan we see as we drive in India, AI means all-inclusive. Good for India.
So thank you, Wendy. I think you teed off many different topics, and you were one of the original persons in the multimedia and then hypermedia and the web. Over the years, you have seen the web evolve. You started out by sharing that was very optimistic, and then social media and various other things have happened. You have advocated for, you've seen this happen in the web. How do you see the same kinds of things happening in the AI world? And what would be, are you looking forward? Are you positive about where we are? Are you worried? What would be your learnings from the web to the AI world?
Well, I tried to explain this here. We didn't get it right with the web. I mean, Tim is building solid social link data to try and fix the web in terms of what we didn't see was what was going to happen to our data. Effectively, we give all our data to the, not just the governments, I'm not talking about governments here, it's the retail companies, it's the big tech companies. We sign it over, you know, you tick the terms and conditions, no one reads them, the data's with them. And so they can therefore do what they like with it. And of course we get Ravi was talking earlier about reinforcement learning. Google was a huge reinforcement learning machine, and we were part of that. We were part of that social machine. As we gave them our data, we gave Google our data, but in return, we got access, we got a search engine that worked. And we kept, we reinforced it every time we used it. I like Gemini. I'm using that because I feel comfortable that the values that Google have are good, and of course Demis is part of that. But we know there are safety issues, we know there are security issues, but we can't really define them in terms of the social consequences. We can talk about cybersecurity, and of course we have our intelligence services fighting very hard to make sure the bad actors, humans or states, aren't using this technology to attack us or to, ruin our lives in that respect. But the social consequences we didn't predict with the web. We didn't predict what was going to happen with social media, we need to find ways to try and think about what the social consequences will be of the introduction of this technology. We talk about, I think we might come on to this. There's a lot of rhetoric about job losses, yeah. And the social consequence of, unemployment caused by it. But actually, there are huge social consequences in terms of the use of this technology that we just can't predict easily because we don't know exactly what people are going to do with it. And that's the science I'm trying to, as we started to develop it with web science, I'm trying to talk about that in terms of AI, because it's about, as I say, we're building social machines, and we need to think about how we evaluate and test and forecast what might happen. Things that could go right and things that could go wrong. And it's really difficult. It isn't like forecasting the weather. That's hard enough. Fair. But because you're trying to forecast what people will do, and you can't predict how people are going to react, particularly as a society.
So what do we do about it?
We have to start, I think, developing ways of thinking about it. So building simulations using the data that we have. AI might help us in doing that. And data, it's all about getting as much data as we can and encouraging a generation of data analysts that are looking at the data from this perspective. Monitoring what happens. You saw that graph I put it right at the beginning, which is a very simplistic way of looking back at how the web evolved. Can you then extrapolate and predict what might happen in the future?
So you've
not easy, by the way. I'm not pretending any of this is easy.
I think we'll leave it to the young people here to explore new ways to see how we can learn from the past so that we can build a better future. But you've been a big champion of inclusivity and diversity and various other things. I know your term during the ACM, you did a lot of work on ACMW, women, And you also alluded to the fact, and we've seen posters about AI equal to all-inclusive in this context. Do you think AI will help inclusivity? Are we going to get, will AI make it possible for it to be more inclusive, meaning other people who are potentially deprived will have access to AI so they can do a lot more? Is that a positive thing, or is the bias going to make it very difficult, or what do you think about it?
Well, you've asked me about 3 questions in there.
Yes, I want you to. I don't want to interrupt your answer.
Well, let me try and unpack it a bit. We're here in the Global South because it's so important, and I'm really glad the summit has rolled to India this year, although the scale of it, like India, is a bit scary. 150, was it? The number varies, but hundreds of thousands of people.
250,000 yesterday.
And a lot of young people, which is great, yeah? And I think that making sure that AI is used, I mean, the UN report was called, we talked a lot about the Global South when we were having our discussions, governing AI for humanity, right? The whole world, so that everyone can have access to the good things that AI will give us. And this is good old-fashioned AI as well as the new generative AI. And I'm a great believer, the Chinese are way ahead of us on this, but robotics is the next big thing. Embedded AI in robotics will come, and I'm sure there's a future in India for that, particularly because in farming and all sorts of areas, that's going to be really big. In terms of inclusive, I think there is the issue, of course, of how we make sure that the elderly, like myself, are included. This is a world, the young people here will be, this is your world, you'll be building it, right? In every sense of the word building, because you'll be part of the development of it if you go into the tech world or AI product world, and you'll be using it in whatever career you do. So it is your world. We need to leave it safe for you. That's what I'm really passionate about. And we need to build the frameworks and well, we talk about guardrails, the safety rails, the infrastructure, I suppose is what I'm looking for, that the young people here today can build on in the future to know that what they're doing is going to be as safe as we can make it. And you know, what are the things that put people in jail for doing bad things using AI? That's create laws around that. Inclusivity. My big worry, when I get asked about what keeps me awake at night about AI, yes, there is a existential threat down the line if we get it wrong and we build AI systems. I don't use the term AGI. We build AI systems that are more intelligent than us. And they get out of control and make decisions on their own that are not good for us. Yeah, that's dangerous. My biggest worry is the lack of women in AI. Right? We are 50% of the population. I've fought my entire career to get women into tech, and I feel I've singularly failed to do that. There are more, and it's lovely to see the young people here. You don't see the female leaders. I'm one of the few women on this plenary stage. There are some others, but tomorrow, I don't see, at the World Leaders Day, I don't think we'll see many women on the stage at all. And my friend, you asked me yesterday, why is it? Because we get women coming into the industry,
Yes, in India at least, when we are recruiting fresh graduates, we get about 40% women coming into the workforce.
Yeah.
But as you go higher up in the organizations, the number of women and leadership positions comes to be lower.
Well, it doesn't just happen in the tech industry, but it's particularly bad in the tech industry. Women when you move up in the industry or in academia, you get fed up with being dismissed, being disregarded, being patronized, being told your ideas aren't good enough. And I mean, the number of times, and girls, it happens to me still, you put forward an idea and they say, oh, that's useless. And then a week later, you hear it put forward by a man and they go, oh, that's a really good idea. Didn't you hear me say it? And my friend, Dame Steve Shirley, she had a lovely saying which said, why do women leaders have flat heads? It's the constant patting on the head. Says, don't worry, dear, it'll all be all right. And that's the problem. And it isn't a problem women should be solving, it's a problem the men have to solve as well. You have to stop patronising us, you have to listen to us, and you have to encourage us. I had the most fantastic mentors, both men and women. And without them, I wouldn't be here. There are several times in my career where I wanted to give up because people have been so rude to me or dismissed what I was saying. And it was my mentors who kept me going, and some of the men I remember, but particularly Steve Shirley, Martin Rees, the Royal Society, who told me I could do it, and I have.
You are an inspiration to not just the women of this world, but also to the men, so thank you for keep doing what you do. I've known you for many years now. I just want to shift this, since we are here in India and Global South, clearly from the point of view here, we see that AI is completely dominated by 2 countries, 10 companies. What do you think is the future? How do we change that, or is that important at all? And what happens to the rest of the world, maybe, in case somebody decides to shut the taps off somewhere?
So what?
To shut the systems down to certain countries or not allow other countries to do it because of...
Well, I think that, again, it's good that we're here this year because, the first summit in the Global South, it's so important that the countries... I mean, India's got the scale to do it. I mean, to be honest with you, India could do whatever it wanted to do if it puts its mind to it, because of the scale. I mean, you want to live in a little country like the UK, once our navies ruled the world, but we're actually a small island off the coast of Europe with only a few million people. So for us to, for us to scale up with the big companies is really hard to do in the UK. I am very excited about what's happening in the UK. Our government's put a lot of money into AI, and I talked about the new the Safety Institute and the Measurement Institute. We tend to lead in the soft power area, and I think the whole the AI assurance industry, this is going to be a major industry. I mean, you think about how you buy insurance all the time for your health, your car, your house. We're going to do that for AI, right? There will be all sorts of insurance products that we will build, we will buy. And people, I mean, it's the same when a company buys some AI, they've got to know it's going to work. Who do you blame if it goes wrong?
Yeah, you're right.
So there's a whole new industries that are going to grow. And also the other thing is amazing. When I look at, I know much more about India than I know about Africa, but I do know in both countries I have seen the development of technology where it leapfrogs what's happening in the West or the East, because you take a new idea and then you say what India did with smartphones, amazing, what you've done with the Aadhaar and I find it hard to pay for things here because I can't get onto your system, but it all looks so easy. And then what's happened in Africa, in Kenya and Uganda and places where they're using the technology, it's quite amazing what will happen. And this is people being creative and innovative in terms of new technologies. And so every government in the world needs an AI strategy that is fit for purpose for their country. And it's not one size fits all. And I think that, we're talking about sovereign AIs. Do countries need the LLMs in their own language and with their own data? And or small, the SLMs. I think this is a world that's emerging, very much so. It's very exciting. And I think there's just everything to play for. I'm very positive. Although I talk about the negatives, I'm very positive about this future.
Thank you, Wendy. And I want to now move it to the younger people who are in this room. You talked a little bit about jobs and what happens to students. What should students be learning now, and What do you think is the future of work and employment in the AI world as you see it?
Well, okay, this is what we need to start measuring. We need to start gathering the data around the world of what happens as the AI introduces. I mean, it's all very well saying we're going to measure AI, but we can't do that without data and evidence and things to measure. So I'm calling for this to happen around the world. We need governments and companies to share data about what's happening as much as they can. Clearly, there's sensitive data you can't share, but and to enable researchers in industry or in academia to analyze that data and see what the trends are, see how things, because it's all hypothetical. I mean, there's a lot in the UK at the moment in the press about, oh, the jobs are going, the frontline jobs are going. There's also, the jobs are going also because there's not enough money in the economy. I won't go political, sorry. I won't criticize the current government, just in case they're in the audience. But because I don't agree with all their policies. But, you know, there's all sorts of economic reasons why jobs are going for young people in the UK, not just AI. I do think it's ironic that programmers are one of the first to be hit, people who write code, because, and we've seen the applications to our computer science program go down because the rhetoric is that companies won't need programmers, entry-level programmers, because the AI can do it. But the AI doesn't, at the moment, decide itself what it's going to do. Someone's got to tell it, and someone's got to check that it's correct. Yeah. And so, we need experts in the field of computing and software engineering. So the way they're trained might be different, but we're going to need those experts in the future. And I like to think about teams. I like to think about augmented intelligence, so that AI augments our intelligence, and talk about teams of humans and machines working together to do things better.
So do you have a specific message for the young people here who are studying various subjects? Should they be investing more in computer science or do other things?
Well, I don't
what should they
put
do?
It like that. Everyone needs to understand, just like, oh, when I started out, we all had to learn more. I was a pure mathematician. I hated computing. Hated it. Now look at me. I think in the abstract, that's what I've always loved, but I had to go, I did my PhD in pure mathematics, and then there were no jobs, right, for pure mathematicians. There really are. And the computing was clearly the next big thing. The micros were coming out. I wrote my first AI code on a BBC B micro. It was a program to intelligent tutoring system in 1982 is when I wrote that in micro prologue. And I'd learned that because I went to do a master's degree in computer science part-time at City University to learn about the computing, this pure mathematician learning about computing, because I knew if I was going to get into this world, I had to understand it. So I think, and my passion is about explaining AI to people who don't know what an eigenvector is. Now, all the mathematicians and physicists will know what an eigenvector is, but that's a small part. Most of the population are not going to ever know what an eigenvector is or want to know. And so what we're doing at Southampton is two things. One is we developed an online master's for non-scientists, right? An online master's in AI for non-scientists. And I'm passionate, I always have been passionate about the interdisciplinary work. I do loads of work with social scientists, historians, geographers, musicians. So I'm passionate about the interdisciplinary and about how we, as Demis was talking about, we go across the disciplinary boundaries. But they need to know about, everyone needs to have some understanding about artificial intelligence. And this is for me, this is the most important thing. So young people, if you're not, learn about it. However, whatever's the easiest way for you to do it is to, and buy my new book, which is coming out in May or June, which is called AI Explained, and that's for non-scientists too.
Thank you very much, Wendy.
Sorry.
I think our time is up. So I'd like to really thank you for being here and for sharing your perspectives. Yes, we will all buy your book. Hopefully you will come back again for the book tour, and we would love to host you again when you can share more details about your books. Thank you very much, and thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Wendy Hall and Dr. Anand Deshpande, for a very important conversation highlighting the need to do more as we build the future with AI. Thank you very much. We are now at the place of a well-deserved break. I think we would all want to stretch our legs, but before we do that, I want to make a couple of important announcements. We will reconvene for our panel at 10:55. I request you to be seated by 10:45. We are going to have two parallel panels. One is a research dialogue on AI for science in this room, and one is an international panel on challenges of Global South in level 1, room number 7. Secondly, people who are going to present posters can be beside their display boards starting 10:55. So we'll meet again at 10:55. Thank you very much. Sorry, an update. Apparently, there's a lot of crowd on your posters already. So if you are a poster presenter and you would want to catch more people, please go to your posters now and start talking about your research.
Well, when I look at the current systems and what's missing from them being a kind of general intelligence, I would say things like continual learning, so learning after they've been trained and put out into the world. The today's systems, we train them, we do various different types of training on them, and then they're kind of frozen and then put out into the world. But what you'd like is for those systems to continually learn online from experience, to learn from the context they're in, maybe personalized to the situation.
Pawtucket police received a call for an active shooter at Dennis Lynch Arena. Suspect was Robert Dorgan. Pawtucket police received a call for an active shooter at Dennis Lynch Arena. Suspect was Robert Dorgan. His date of birth is July 15th of 1969. One of the victims was his...
Today, we are delighted to welcome our colleagues from the media, from India and around the world. Welcome to what we believe is an amazing week for AI, India and the globe. We are meeting at an important...
Even recently the work Sarvam has done, developing local AI models. So I think what you're talking about is actually happening, and I just don't see any impediments to that, and I think India is very, very well positioned.
On that note, thank you very much to all three of you, and if I could please request Preeti and Sanjay Gupta, President Google APAC, to please join us. Everyone, thank you for joining us today. We are delighted to...
The role of an editor, that Rajkumar Hirani is one of the best editors that we have today. Whether that kind of an editor can be taken into the system, and whether that human in the loop, what we call it, can be avoided, I would say at this point in time, no. The thing is, that sense actually comes from the experience that is happening around you. And it will, of course, we know that it might also get overcome by AI in some time. But the foundational skills for the kids are very important, and that's why we are saying starting early in life is very important for the kids to understand what is the grammar of storytelling, and we need to prepare them from the 6th grade to the 12th grade. That's what this budget talked about, that we are going to impact it with 15,000 schools to start with. AI pretty much has entered every single aspect of our business, right from graphics to even writing scripts to giving you the final video, and also creating something which is, of different scale altogether. Nevertheless, the thing is, few of the challenges that I see as we design curriculums for the new age storytellers is that every semester will have to be a different semester as you define it. Because the foundational skills are the ones that you can actually look at going early. India, unfortunately, with the first education policies, didn't have creative arts, performing arts, design and sports into the mainstream curriculum. And it's kind of coming in only after NEP 2020. And that too after the 6th grade onwards, from 6th to 12th grade. So one of the aspects that IACT that we are doing is to really look at a foundational pathway for kids to find their, like you do physics, chemistry, mathematics to go to engineering, physics, chemistry, biology to go to medical, and then the commerce pathway.